So I've already made another one of the mistakes that I made the first time I did this, because I was reviewing that footage. I noticed a couple of mistakes. And this mistake is I forgot to put these stiffener plates on here. They actually go here on caps 3 through 6. So I'm just going to have to remove these bolts and then put them back on and retorque them. Not a big deal, but yeah, don't forget these. So these screws actually go in the forward slot. Then you'll put the baffle plate on, and then the rear screws will be used for the baffle plate. So we'll just start these screws first. So anyway, I'm gonna get these retorqued. The torque on these is 17 foot-pounds or 22 Newton meters. Okay, my 2 crank pins have been cleaned off. I've got the plastic gauge just totally cleaned off of there. Give these a final spray of air. I'm gonna flip the engine over. I'm gonna wipe out the bores, make sure they're perfectly clean, and then we'll insert the pistons. We'll start with 3 and 4. Okay, so I've got a fresh pair of gloves on. I'm gonna put oil into my cylinders. Just make sure I get a nice coating all the way around. So I'm going to start with number 3, and I'm going to make sure my rings are clocked properly. I got the 2 oil rings here and here. They're a little bit inward from the oil drain holes for whatever reason. I've got the second ring clocked here, and then the top ring here. Okay, my ring compressor on. I'm always going to try to do it by hand. You really can't. They're just a little too tight. Just push down on your ring compressor, make sure it's seated. That's it. Just a couple of love taps. You know, the piston rings are going to move. They're going to spin around in the grooves once the engine's running, but they should stay in the same relative position to one another. So you just want to make sure that nothing's overlapping. But you know, as the engine runs, that top ring can end up here, can end up here. You know, everything is going to keep moving around together. I dislike this ring compressor. They make more expensive ones, you know, that are like tapered, they're in the proper shape, they're specific to the bore. They also make like an adjustable one that's similar to that, but they're particularly expensive. I can see that I wasn't seated all the way on this side. I was looking down here in the front and back. I want to make sure that the ring compressor is just totally seated. That way it's grabbing the oil rings, because that oil ring right now is sitting right on the surface. So you just want to make sure that you are completely seated here. You don't want to go knocking your piston in if the oil ring isn't being properly compressed, because otherwise you're going to bend the oil ring because they're so thin and they're so light. Make sure those arrows are facing forward, right? Towards the front of the engine. So just reach down and guide the pin right up into place. You know what? I forgot to add a little bit of oil onto that bearing. See that? There are a lot of little things to remember as you're doing this. So here, oil, oil. Man. Make sure you're using the right cap. Match the numbers up. This is 498. That's 498 right there. So make sure that the little tangs are aligned. The stamp numbers should be on the same side. Stamp numbers should be on the exhaust side. That's the side. Make sure you put a little oil on your rod bolts. Just a little bit. Just a little bit on the tips. Remember, it's 20 Newton meters. And then 70 degrees. And now that we got some of the pistons in there, we need to put the pulley bolt back in here in order to spin the crankshaft around. Okay, we are done. So our oil pump goes on and our baffle plate goes on as well. I was in the process of cleaning this thing up a little bit more. You know, I put it on my wire wheel and I got the major areas, the brass wire wheel, on my bench grinder, but I couldn't get into the little spots here. I bought some little tiny brass wire wheels for my rotary tool, but when you use those things, the little bristles come off flying and want to poke you in the eye and embed in your shirt. And so I don't know, I did this side, and honestly, it's really not that big a deal because this is just sort of baked on varnish. It's not coming off. It's not going to get into anything or get into any bearings. It's just going to stay there forever. So I'm not doing anything about it. So those short bolts go for the baffle. It's the same bolt for here and here. So you should have 16 of those total. 8 for this side, 8 for that side, right? Then we're gonna have, okay, these are gonna be my rear main seal bolts. Okay, long bolt here, here, and here, and then short bolt on this side. And these are, again, 22 Newton meters, 17 foot-pounds. We gotta run them down first. I've put a new O-ring on the oil pickup tube. Very important to change this O-ring. If it's leaking, you could get air in your oil system, which is not good. Yes, I should have just gotten all these parts cleaned by the machine shop. Just forgot to take them. These are going to be 10 Newton meters, which is 7.5 foot-pounds. What is that? Yeah, 70 inch-pounds. There's going to be a little bolt for the rear of the baffle, which I forgot. Hold on. Rear baffle bolt right back here, because it's a different size socket. It's a 10 millimeter socket for this. I'm going to rotate the engine over again, make sure that it doesn't hit that baffle in any way. Looks like it doesn't. I need to make sure that this sprocket goes on the right way, and I remember that the writing was upside down, looking at it this way, so that's the way I'm putting it back on. It looks like it doesn't matter, but I just recall reading a post by somebody saying that it does matter. So, okay, I'm doing something wrong. Okay, yeah, I actually had that sprocket on backwards, even though I thought I put it on the right way. And I could not get that chain on. So it looks like it does indeed go only one way. Hold on, now I gotta get these splines in here. I think the pump needs to move slightly. There. Trickier than I would have thought. So now it's time to do the oil pump nut. It's reverse threaded, so you're gonna loosen it in order to tighten it. I've removed the safety wider so that I can torque it properly. And it's gonna be 18 foot-pounds. And I need to reverse this. Need to get that crank bolt back in. Actually, that might not hold it because that's threaded differently. So, need to figure out a way to hold the crankshaft in place. And I think what I might do, okay, I think what I'm gonna do is just use a screwdriver to kind of come in here, prevent the sprocket from, you know, prevent the chain from getting on the sprocket. I'm really nervous about over torquing this because I had to replace this once already. Come on, man. I'm extra nervous. Man, this thing doesn't want to click. I'm just wondering if maybe when I messed up the last nut, if maybe I messed up the threads as well. I don't know, it didn't look like I did, but now it's feeling like I did. So now I don't know. Okay, it was just this oil pump nut that just stripped off as well, again. I think that it's this nut from Rally Road. I couldn't even torque that to 25 Newton meters. That is really screwed up, man. Let me try this nut, my original nut. You know, this feels like 18 already. I don't know why my torque wrench isn't clicking. It's really making me nervous. I want to use the torque wrench with the digital readout on it. Yeah, okay, there's something up with my torque wrench. There is something wrong with it. And I don't know what it is. With my other torque wrench, that is. Because this is now over 25 Newton meters. So I want to go ahead and put some red Loctite on this thing just to make sure that it doesn't come off, because I can't use The other oil pump nuts I bought, I've ruined 2 of them now, I guess, because of my torque wrench. So yeah, definitely not waiting for another one. I'm gonna settle for using red Loctite, which I think should be fine. I wanted to show you guys how that oil pump nut works. I'll throw like a little still up on the screen from the Rally Road website. It's easy to figure out how to do it just from that picture alone. So, okay, so a little red Loctite. That's it. So really weird. I don't know why my torque wrench wasn't working. Maybe it's because I had it in the reverse direction. Maybe this piece of crap Craftsman just doesn't torque properly in the reverse direction. That's probably what it is. And that's probably why I've gone through these two oil pump nuts so far. So that's really disappointing. I didn't realize that was the problem. But that's what it was. So yeah, we'll just move on. So now we can put the guides back on. This one goes here. Obviously this is the side that the chain rides on. And on this one, the short end actually goes down. So I've put the main chain back in here. I'm actually not replacing this chain because it's just because of the unique way that you set the timing on this engine. Normally, all these chains actually quote unquote stretch after they're used, and they don't really stretch physically. What happens is a little bit of play develops in between the links, and that causes the overall length of the chain to increase. And what would happen in a normal engine is that the timing, in relation between the crank and the cam would actually change because the cam sprocket would rotate this way as this chain quote unquote stretches a little bit. But because of the way you set the timing on this engine, that sprocket is not bolted in a fixed position to the cam. You're actually able to rotate the sprocket in relation to the cam in order to reset the timing perfectly. So because of the unique way you set the timing on this engine, you don't need to replace these chains. So we've got 2 gaskets here, and they're gonna have to go on the timing cover. Luckily there are little dowels to kind of hold them on. Now there is going to be a gasket for the rear main seal housing as well. I'm realizing that I didn't put it on there, but it's a half moon shape and I'll be able to slip it on there before I bolt the thing up. Once I get this thing off of the engine stand, that is. I am contemplating using a dab of RTV to kind of hold these things in place, but we'll see if I can just do it here. Here. Probably not. In fact, I think that I'm going to put the timing cover on. I think I'll try to slip the gaskets in sort of afterwards. Or I'm going to put the timing cover sort of on. It might just be a little easier if I do it this way. Let's make sure we've got the chain properly on. Okay. And then this one's going to go in here. So I'll pull this back a little bit. I'm just slipping the gasket over the little alignment pin. Okay, I think I got it. Yeah. So gasket there. Put the gasket where it needs to be. And I'm going to use some of the bolts to just kind of hold the gasket in place, top and bottom. kind of pin it where it needs to be. See, one here and one here. And the long bolt actually goes here, long bolts. You can see where they go because they stick out further. The bosses for them stick out further, so they're all on the top. Here, here, and here are the long ones, and the rest of them are short. So we'll just stick a short one in down here. Yeah, and so I can just visually see that we're aligned on all the gaskets. Let me run some of these down. The torque on all of these is going to be 10 Newton meters. That same 70 inch-pounds. And I don't know, I'm just going to go sort of alternating. Actually, I'm wondering. You know what? I'll just go center out. I think I did this one. Yeah. Come back and double check them because the torque could have changed as you got the other ones down. You also could have missed one. Yeah, these ones changed slightly as I torqued the other ones down. So that's it for that. Got our timing chain up here. And we should not have been able to actually put it on if it wasn't on, if it had slipped off of any of the sprockets, because there's that little ledge inside there. So the rubber on my crank pulley actually looks nice. Every crank pulley is going to have, you know, a little piece of rubber on the inside that's to cushion the vibrations. It looks fine. It doesn't look deteriorated at all. So we're going to put this thing on. Okay. You want to oil the bolt and the washer. Probably both sides of the washer, actually. Oiling that washer, I think it, you know, usually only matters when you're actually torquing it, so you get the right torque reading. But I do not have a torque wrench that does, what is it, 410 Newton meters? I don't know, 300 something foot-pounds. I'm just going to use my impact to do it. There's really no choice for us here, unless you got like a, I mean, only truck shops have torque wrenches that go that high. But the trick is, I don't want the engine rotating when I torque this thing over. I don't want this chain trying to break the guides the way it did last time. So I'm trying to figure out a way to just hold the crankshaft in place. So I've wired the chain up to the timing cover so that it just doesn't fall down in there. And I actually have a rubber strap wrench, which I'm going to try to use to keep the crankshaft from turning, spinning, and jerking on the chain. Here, let's make it tighter. Yeah, like that. So, and I'm just going to hit this thing. Okay, it stopped moving. Just make sure things turn properly. And they do. I just wanted to double check and made sure that chain wasn't caught up in any way. So now we can just let it sit in there. I've made sure to stick my new gasket in with my rear main seal bolts so that I won't forget it. So I'm just going to put this gasket on right now because it'll be held in place by the little collars, those little alignment collars. If I can get it in there properly. Oh, don't come off, rear main seal. Okay, my rear main seal came off. That's a problem. Actually, that's kind of a big problem because I needed it to be on in order to put the oil pan on. So that's a bigger problem for me than I wanted it to be. I think what I'm gonna have to do, there's no choice. I just wish there was a little bit more room on this thing. But yeah, there's no choice. I'm gonna have to sling the engine with my hoist and take this thing away so that I can come in here, bolt the rear main seal housing up, and then put the oil pan on. Sucks, but that's what has to be done. So here we go, guys. This is the setup that I have. I just have some chains, and I've got the engine mount nuts screwed in here and here. There are threaded holes all along the engine for, you know, various different exhaust mounts on the different kinds of cars this goes in. So just use 2 of the bolts, chains, and I'm just supporting the engine that way, and I'll just take it off the engine stand, take this bracket off and fix it. $19. Okay, gasket. Gasket goes right there. Okay. Make sure that tool is seated all the way. Okay, there. Make sure the seal is on properly. Looks like it is. These bolts just go on. So these 4 just go on bare. For some reason, these lower 2 have blue Loctite on them. I don't know why they would and the others wouldn't. You know what? I think I might just put blue Loctite on them anyway. Just cause. So blue Loctite on these for sure. But yeah, there was never blue Loctite on these other ones, and it's always seemed a little weird to me. So I think I'll just put it on anyway, because it ain't gonna hurt anything. So these ones are gonna be 10 Newton meters. And then these ones are 22 Newton meters. Okay, problem solved. Okay, we have got a new oil pan gasket. Before we put it on, we need to put a little RTV where the timing cover and the rear main seal cover join the block. And my favorite kind of RTV is gray. Seems to work really good. But RTV is RTV. You don't even need this much. You just want a little bead. So how does this go on? There's the corner. It goes on this way. Just like that. This pan should make you happy. They cleaned it up really nicely. Yay, that is signaling that we are near the end of the job, guys. There. Get that guy aligned properly. Nice dirty screws. I should probably take some time to clean these up. Yeah, there were just a few too many bolts to clean up, really. And these little ones, they're just really hard to clean up. They were fine. The threads are fine. They're just black. No big deal. Anyway, we're going to get them all tightened down, and we're going to torque them all to 10 Newton meters. And you don't really need to see that. So now we'll go ahead and put the oil level sensor back in. Oil drain plug right here. And it looks like I've got an extra bolt in this bag. So I don't remember what this went to. It was probably something from the side of the engine. But, oh, you know what? It might have been this right here. That's probably what it was. And that holds the bracket on for the ATF cooler lines. So that's almost certainly what that was. And then I've got like a little wire holder, and that's, I think that went right here on the side here in the back to hold the little wiring harness for this sensor. So let's get this tightened up. Same 10 Newton meters. That one I'm going to do by hand. There's probably a replacement washer for that, but honestly, I think that this is fine. I really don't think it'll leak oil. Because, you know, you replace this copper washer every time you do an oil change, and I just replaced it. Yeah, I think it's fine. Okay, so we got to put the knock sensors back on, and this is how they go. The bolts are a little longer. I've got a little bag of, it says coolant pipes, knock sensor. So I've got a couple of short ones in there. Obviously, the longer ones are for the knock sensors. And these are going to be 17, 22 Newton meters. Basically, if the bolt has a 13 millimeter head, you realize it's, 17, 18 foot-pounds, 22 Newton meters, I believe. And if it's got a 10 millimeter head, that's always going to be 10 Newton meters or 7.5 foot-pounds for the most part. So I actually could put the oil filter housing back on right now. I actually did get a new, this is a new to me oil filter housing, because the bolt right here where the power steering pump bolts to, on my old one, this is stripped out. So I just went to the junkyard and got one and made sure none of the bolts were stripped out, and I just transferred over the pressure sensor and the temperature sensor, and I cleaned it up with my pressure washer a little bit. And I could go ahead, the engine rebuilding kit comes with a new gasket, by the way. I could put this on now, but the problem with that is that it would sort of block your view of this when I go to put everything back in the engine. So I'm just going to put this back on after everything's in the engine. And the same for the coolant pipe. This coolant pipe, I got new ones. Obviously, the old ones were trashed. This coolant pipe would sort of stick out. It kind of goes this way. So it's, this would kind of stick out, and I don't want that to get like knocked on anything. So I'm just going to put that in after the engine's in the car. It's not necessary. You could do it now if you want to, but I'm just choosing to do it like that because of video purposes. Okay, so we're going to get this bracket back on, the AC compressor bracket, and you've got 2 long bolts and 3 short ones. The short ones go here. I've cleaned this bracket up with my pressure washer. It was pretty gnarly. And then the 2 long ones go here on the side, here and here, not there, here. So make sure we get those started first. Same thing, 17 foot-pounds. So the tensioner goes in here. Yes, I know I shouldn't start these bolts this way. But I can get away with it. You too can get away with it. You just have to be cocky enough. Haha. So when I was at the junkyard, I also picked up a driver's side or left side engine mount, because this bolt that my dipstick tube is bolted to is actually stripped out on my old one. I can see it. This is the old one that's stripped out, so junk. Actually, I should pull that out. I'm going to take it, and because it's aluminum, I'm going to recycle it along with my old cylinder head. Anyway, so I got a new mount, and it's actually for the other side. But we'll bolt up the exhaust side mount to this one. I got to clean it off first. So I think that the engine mount goes here on these screws, because I can kind of see the marks a little bit where it used to be. And I do remember that the ground plug went towards the front of the engine. Can't find a specific torque for these bolts in the literature, but it's going to be 22 newton meters. Again, it always goes off the size of the bolt. So M8 bolts, meaning not the head of the bolt, but the actual width of the bolt. If it's 8 millimeters, 22 is going to be the default torque unless there's something else specified. So that should be it for this side of the engine. Let's go over to the intake side. This one's going to be a little easier because this bolt actually, or this hole, sticks up at an angle, so that could only go right here. So, you know, one thing we can put on, one last thing, is the water pump. There's a new gasket for it with my my kit, and normally you can use coolant to lubricate the O-ring, but I don't have any coolant handy at the very moment. I probably do, but I don't want to get it. So I'm just using some dielectric grease to lube up the O-ring. And there's only one way you can put it on. You can't put it on upside down. So I know the nuts are dirty, but I can't really clean them. Not something I can hold against the brass wire wheel. And this is 10 newton meters. So I'm going to use the bag that my crankshaft came in as a little cover for this right here. Just kind of tape it down. It's probably not super necessary. But I don't know exactly when I can put this in the car. Probably this weekend. It's a Wednesday right now. So yeah, that should hold it off. That should be fine. So that is it for the bottom end assembly, guys. At this point, this thing can go back into the car and I can finish reassembling it from there. In case you haven't been following the project from the beginning and you don't understand why I'm not bolting the cylinder head up to the engine while it's on my engine stand here, which would obviously be easier. The reason I'm doing it that way is because I started off by taking the head out of the car when the engine was still in it. And I just want you guys to see how to put it back in from that perspective as well. That way, if there's somebody out there who just wants to change their head gasket or just wants to get their cylinder head rebuilt, and that way they see how to put it back in without, when the engine has not been removed from the car. So that's the reason I'm doing it that way. And if you have not been following the series all along, check out the description. I'm going to put a link in there to the playlist so you can check out all the videos in this project from start to finish. There's also a bunch of other helpful links as well. If you want to stay up to date on the project, follow me on Instagram and Facebook. If you want to, if I've earned your subscription, please subscribe, and then remember to click the bell icons and turn on notifications. That way you'll get notified whenever I post a new video. I'm the 50s Kid. Thanks a lot for watching.